All right. So today we're going over functions, which is a big part of programming and important. So let's what the hell is going on? Oh, I signed into the wrong one.
Hey Brandon, I have a question.
What's up?
Hey, I'm trying to do my resume, and man, I'm just so jacked up trying to understand doing my resume. Is there a way you can show us an example that we can duplicate? Because all these other guys have some very good looking resumes.
Yeah, I sent it a while back. Some like all these different sites you can look at. Once this gets loaded, I will go ahead and send that again. Give me a sec.
All right, thank you.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, so there's free CSS. So this is one site you can look at to get ideas of different. So they actually provide you with the whole complete CSS and everything. And you can look at it if you get lost and confused, but don't just download it and copy it and just use it. Eventually, I'll show you guys how to use templates to build websites, just because it's faster and easier and whatnot. But I mean, for your resume project, you definitely need to build it as your own original site and everything. But you can take a look at these in order to get an idea. Just get an idea of what you want to build and then duplicate it, and like you can look at the the live demos and stuff, and then where's a good one? This one's a good one. And like just get ideas how you'd want to build it and everything. Let me think of another one. Yeah, so just look through some of those sites to find a website you want to mimic, and I mean, if you just see other websites for as you're going to websites and you're like, oh, I think that would look good as a resume project, that's not necessarily like a template like this. I mean, that works too. So, all right, so code reuse.
That was template MO or template monster?
Whatever I set in the chat.
Oh, you put it in the chat? Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see.
Okay. Let's see. Patricia, can you read? Wait, are you feeling better? I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm feeling better. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Can you read?
Yes. Reusing code. Code reuse is a very important part of programming in any language. Increasing code size makes it harder to maintain. For a large programming project to be successful, it is essential to abide by the don't repeat yourself or DRY principle. We've already looked at one way of doing this by using loops. In this module, we will explore two more: functions and modules. Bad repetitive code is said to abide by the WET principle, which stands for write everything twice, or we enjoy typing.
All right. So go ahead and answer the next question.
Like me or everyone?
Oh, everyone.
Okay.
Answer it on your own. All right. The dry principle makes code easier to maintain. Tim, can you read this one?
Yes. Hold on, please. Too many buttons here. Functions. You've already used functions in previous lessons. Any statement that consists of a word followed by information in parentheses is a function call. Here are some examples that you already seen. Range, open, close parentheses, hello world. The words in front of the parentheses are function names, and the comma separated values inside the parentheses are function arguments. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, answer the next one. And if anybody has any questions, if any of this isn't clear, just let me know. What they're saying is this is the function name, this is the argument, and you can pass in multiple arguments into your functions if it allows for multiple arguments. Basically, the different thing you pass into it is going to give you the different results. All right, how many arguments are in this function? 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. All right, Brian, can you read this one?
Functions. In addition to using a predefined function, you can create your own functions by using the def statement. There is an example of a function named myFunction. It takes no arguments and prints spam 3 times. It is defined and then called. The statement is in the function are executed only when the function is called. The code block within every function starts with a colon and is indented.
Okay, so this one, run it, and it's going to print spam 3 times. if we don't call the function, nothing's going to happen. So you always have to call your function, and you can, this is similar to JavaScript, but yeah, and you can put whatever you want in this function, whatever's in, this block of code. It's gonna, execute, and adding parameters or adding arguments, it makes it really helpful to make your functions more unique, because not generally you're not just gonna do something that is like just doing the same thing over and over again. Sometimes you'll have functions without arguments, but generally you'll pass stuff into it. So like we pass in word, right? So we're just making a variable name right here called word. So anytime we use that variable name, it's going to go ahead and it's going to use that. And right here, we don't have to name the function name the same thing. We can, that we're passing in, it's generally helpful, like to have it the same thing so that it's clear. And so I always name it the same thing, but technically you could name it like whatever you want. Word to print.
So I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So I know right now in this screen right here, you can, type stuff and then you run and then it will tell you, it's not working. Now, if you do on an actual page and you do an error, does there somewhere pop up saying you screwed up somewhere? Like when we do the test,
Yes. So yeah, and it'll also tell you if there's an error here. So like if I didn't create this variable beforehand, right, it gives me an error and tells me what the error is. And it's saying name, the word to print is not defined. That just means you called on a variable that you never created, right? And you'll get the same thing inside your, and that's why we use Flask. And that's why we use our web server, because your web server will actually tell you what the error is. And I'll demonstrate that. Test. Okay, so let's do a divided by 0 error. So zero, or actually 99 divided by 0. Well, in Python, you can't divide something by 0 because you'll get an error. So when I go to test 2, I'm still working on something, so it's going to keep giving me an error. Hold on. Mm-hmm. 11:23. Put this here.
and if you're working on something right now, no worries. I don't want to hold up the class.
No, it's all good. Um, what to do. Okay, so now I should be able to go to my test two. So when I go here, it gives me a 0 division error, right? So it's all, and then the great thing about it is it even tells you what line it got the error on and in what file, right? So it's in my main.py and what line. So you can go straight to it and see what your error is. So yeah, if you have errors while you're working in Python, on your web server, it'll tell you right there when you go to the page. Is that helpful?
It is, but looking at your screen right here, you have all these lines with stuff. So mine is, how do I decipher between a regular, output versus the error?
Well, it tells you what the error type is right up here,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then you just have to scroll down to the bottom.
So
And
will it always be on the bottom then?
yeah, well, okay, sometimes it might be a few lines up if it's like calling, if it didn't necessarily get an error with what you called, but then what you called then created an error in some other process that it called later. Yeah, I'm not really explaining that right or easily to make sense. So like if you're using like a third party module or whatever, and that got an error because of something you did, but what you did didn't necessarily cause the error itself, but the error happened in the third party's modules code, you might be it might be up a couple lines, but for the most part, like if it's something you did, you're going to see it as the initial error here. So he's got to learn, and you'll get used to understanding like what the different errors mean and like how to fix them and stuff.
Okay.
And a great thing to do is if you screw something up, you just take it to Google and you'll get something on Stack Overflow for whatever the error is, and it'll help explain it to you. So just get really good at Googling things, and
Oh, I am.
programmers do. That makes you a great programmer. But anyway,
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome. All right. So anyway, back to this. So yeah, you've got to call your function. Is long story short. And you can pass things into your function to use in that block of code. All right, go ahead, answer the next question. Okay, fill in the blanks to define a function named hello. So you just put def, and then we're going to name our function hello, and then you always put your parentheses after hello, whether just so that you know it's a function, and that's where you'll pass arguments if you need them, and then always your colon, and then an indented block of whatever you want in your function or what you want your function to do. Sandra, can you read this one?
Of course, function. You must define function before they are called in the same way that you must assign variables before using them. Example, try it yourself to play around with the code. Welcome to Sololearn. Redesign the given function so that it will take the given input as the name of the user and output to welcome message to it.
All right. So,
Hey, can you go back one, Brendan? I missed it. The functions.
yeah, it's just def and colon.
All right, great. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. So, any questions about this before we move on to the practice? Anyway, long story short, you can't call it before it's defined. So, all right, go ahead and start on this and the next question, and then raise your hand once you're done.
Brandon, was iLibrarian not taken as a domain name?
No, I own it.
Dang, that's
Yeah. No, wait. Didn't work. Oh, okay. Looks like a lot of you are done. So, oops. Okay. Mike, can you do share screen, share your answer, and explain it? Oh, you're muted.
there we go. Geez, couldn't unmute. All right, this one right here.
Uh-huh.
So on this one, we have defined a function welcome message with I want to make it more personalized to raise on a given function. So what it did is it takes the name as the user's input, and it was giving a generic output of welcome user, and they wanted to change it to a name. So what you do is you have the user input a name, and then you adjust the print output basically to add a space, a plus sign, and then the name, which it comes back to our user input, and then it prints the message, welcome, whatever person name it is.
Perfect. Create a function, called it. Awesome. All right. Anybody stuck on that or need help?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, can you do screen share? Tim?
Me? Sure.
Okay, so you're trying to call your function there in that block of code, and you can't call it inside it. So go ahead and click on line 5 right before the W and hit delete. Or sorry, not delete. Delete's on the back. Click back there, hit backspace. Okay, now hit run.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. David, can you do screen share? Oh, you just need to change user to name on line 4.
Oh.
We'll see. And if you look at the error log there, it says name error, name user is not defined. That just tells you that you're trying to call on a variable that was never created yet. So it's a good idea to like look at the error logs and it even tells you like, look, it's right there on line 4, where your error was. So it's
Yeah, I saw that, but I couldn't. It's because I didn't change user to name.
yeah. So just start to get in the habit of with error logs, looking at those to because it'll tell you right there the answer, which is awesome. Makes
I
Python
gotcha.
really easy. Yeah. And then hit run, and there you go.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else having issues? Nope. Okay. Then
I'm having an issue for some reason.
okay. Can you do screen share?
Yeah.
Oh, so all right. Go ahead and delete name inside the quotes, because anything inside the quotes is just a string, right? And then click outside the quotes and add a plus sign, and then type name. Yeah, perfect. So now it's actually calling on the variable name.
Oh, okay.
Add that to the string. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Anybody else having issues? Okay. Well, it'll stop you sharing, but it's not. Weird. Yes. Okay. So moving on, rearrange the code to declare a function, say hi, and then call it. So just say hi, indented, print hi, and then we call our function, because you always have to call your function after you've defined it, just like JavaScript, if y'all remember that part. Well, hopefully y'all remember. Anyway. in JavaScript, when you type out the word function and then create your function, well, Python, it's the same thing, just you put that instead. And you don't have to have curly brackets like you do in JavaScript. So this one, hold on. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Mark, can you read this one?
Yes. All the functions definitions we looked at so far have been functions of zero arguments, which are called with empty parentheses. However, most functions take arguments. The example below defines a function that takes one argument. As you can see, the argument is defined inside the parentheses.
Okay. So we kind of just covered this, so I'm not gonna really go over it, but whatever you pass in here is gonna be what gets input in there whenever, this is creating the variable name, and this is then calling on the variable, using the variable, which is, and the value of the variable is whatever gets passed in here, right? Any questions on that? Nope. Okay. What is the result of this code? Print double, pass in x. X, we're going to pass in 3. So 3 times 2 is 6. Okay. And Roger, can you read this one?
Arguments. You can also define functions with more than one argument. Separate them with commas. Have to try yourself to play around with the code.
Okay, so you do as many arguments as you want. Oh, and another cool trick too is if you don't know how many arguments you're going to want, you do oh wait, how do you put that? I can't remember if you put, I think that's where you put it. But anyway, first we'll start with this. So you can just pass it in as many arguments as you want, and you just put a comma. Oh no, you put args, that's right. Args, star, and then and then you can do like nine. Well, we'll get to that because I don't think with args you have to. There's something else you had to do with that. I think it comes as a list. No. Oh well, I don't remember, but we'll get to that. But yeah, so you pass as many arguments you want specified, and then later we'll cover passing in args. Go ahead and answer this, and then raise your hand once you're done. Oh, it's before it. Yeah, it does go as a list. Okay. Looks like a lot of you are done. So, Kevin, can you go ahead and you share screen and share your answer?
All right, so first you assign the first input to password variable, assign the second input to the repeat variable, define the function validate to take 2 arguments, check if argument 1 and argument 2 are the same. If true, output correct. If not true, output wrong. And then call the function validate with password and repeat variables as arguments.
Perfect. Thanks. Is anybody still struggling with this and need help? Nope. Okay. Then moving on. So for this one, fill in the blanks to define a function that takes 2 arguments and prints their multiplication. So def, excuse me, and then print multi or mult, and then pass in X and Y, and your colon, and then a tab, and then print X times Y. Okay, so let's see. Samantha, can you read this one?
Function arguments can be used as variables inside the function definition. However, they cannot be referenced outside of the function's definition. This also applies to other variables created inside a function. This code will throw an error because the variable is defined inside of the function and can be referenced only there. Technically, parameters are the variables in a function definition, and arguments are the values put into parameters when functions are called.
So the reason, so what it's saying here is just because you create a variable inside your function, or even use a variable that was passed in inside your function, you can't then call that outside your function. So like here, watch it. It's going to give you an error because variable is not defined. Even though it is defined, it's only defined in the function. It's not what's called a global variable. So if we did this, we did variable equals 0 and did it outside the function, then, you know, then it'll actually print because it didn't get an error. But if you see, so this inside the function variable is 8, but the outside the one variable is still unaffected, because it's a global variable, not the internal variable. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. And generally, you don't want to do this where you name your global variables the same as your internal variables. But the reason, oh, I didn't explain the reason for this. The reason for this is so you can use variable names like inside your function and not have to worry about them outside your function, you know? So that it just makes it easier because like, you know, maybe you'll use I or whatever, like in a while loop for I and blah, 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 right? But then you'll want to use it outside your variable too. So it's still a good practice to keep them separate, but if you do use them, it's not going to be an issue. Okay, so, oh, darn it. Fill in the blanks to define a function that prints yes if the parameter is even and no otherwise. So def, and then even, pass in this, and then remember the floor. So if x divided or floor 2, so divided by and just get the remainder. If there's no remainder, that means, okay, it does divide by 2, it is even. So print yes, and else print no. And this if has a tab, and so does this print after the else. All right. Will, can you read this one? Will T, can you read this one? No, I can't hear you. Okay, having audio issues, sounds like, so it's all good. We'll move on. Jacob, can you read this one?
Turning from functions. Certain functions such as int or str return a value that can be used later. To do this for your defined functions, you can use the returned statement. For example, the return statement cannot be used outside of the function definition.
Okay, so this is like JavaScript, I think, where so you create your function and you want to then get an answer that you can use outside your function. Like you don't want it to just do something inside your function, right? So if you do a return statement, then it's going to, if you call your function and then put it in a variable, you can then use that variable. So like see here, okay, if 4 is greater than or equal to 7, then return 4. Well, it's not, so it's going to print y, so print 7. And then if 4 is greater than, or sorry, 8 is greater than or equal to 5, well, it is, so it's going to print the first one, right? But what we did on the second one was instead of just, you know, doing print the answer to the variable, which I mean works too, then we're putting it in the variable and then printing it, which is generally how you do it. Any questions on that? So yeah, anytime you want to have an answer outside your variable, just use return. Oh, and I looked up the args thing too. So it's actually you put a a star before your args, but then after that, then you can go ahead and, because I don't think they're going to teach you this on Sololearn. You need for I.
They actually do end up teaching arguments in the later lessons.
Oh, how to pass in arguments.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. Well, we'll cover it real quick anyway. So x plus y plus I. Yeah. So if you have multiple arguments and you don't know what, oh dang it, I didn't stop. Hold on. Stop. Let's see. All right, well, we'll just discard this. But anyway, if you call it in a loop, you can then, get your multiple arguments printed or used or whatever, if you don't know how many. But all right, moving on.
Question though. Now I saw that, there were the two numbers right there, the 5 and the 8, and then, but both of these numbers had a space in between, but when you added the other number, it didn't have a space. Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. It's not picky like that. It's picky about tabs and spaces for indentation, so it knows, where the block of code ends, but not for stuff like that. So,
Okay.
all right, so this one, shortest string, so x and y, if x is less than or equal to the length of y, return x, else return y. Okay. And David, can you read this one?
Returning from functions. Once you return a value from a function, it immediately stops being executed. Any code after the return statement will never happen. For example, try it yourself to play around with the code. Hashtag generator. You are creating your own special network application and need to have a hashtag generator program. Try it with returning from functions.
So generally, you're going to have your return statements at the end of your function, because if not, it's not going to print the stuff. But a lot of times you might have like multiple return statements, kind of like it did in the last one, where it had like, if x is greater than y, whatever, return this, if not, return that. So that's, those are examples of like when you might have a return statement return early, but for the most part, return is usually at the end of your block of code. Especially, it's always at the end of your block of code if you only have one return statement, because then it's just pointless to put the stuff after it. So, any questions on that?
The one before this one, I missed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right, Lens.
Len, return.
I didn't know Len. Len doesn't make sense yet.
Oh,
There's Len, there's def, there's print, there's a whole bunch of them.
No,
I get used to.
len is the length. So like it's generally used for the length of your lists, but you can also use it for the length of your strings as well.
Mm.
And you said def doesn't make sense?
Yeah, that we just did that today with def.
Have you been paying attention, or is it I haven't been, like, have you been busy with
No.
something else? If you have, that's
I
fine.
guess I've been multitasking, but I've been paying attention. Yeah,
Okay, I'm just seeing if
still
I
trying to get used to it.
didn't explain it right or something. Is anybody else struggling with understanding def? What the definition for creating a function?
Def is the definition of the function. That's what def is saying.
Yeah, it's saying it's saying define your function. So you create the function name and then pass in your arguments and then whatever, and then after the colon, whatever's in that block of code, when you call that function, it will execute that block of code. Does that make sense now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, go ahead and do this, and then when you are done, raise your hand. All right. It seems like a lot of you are done. Let's see. Tim, can you do share screen and share your answer?
Yes. Can't even see this now. All right. I'm pretty bad at explaining this, but I pretty much, this was left here, the def hashtag. I
Mhm.
kind of looked at C solutions, and then I seen S1 equals S replaced with the open, with the parentheses, I mean, with the quotation marks. And then there was an open space between the quotation marks. If you didn't put that space there, it wouldn't pass. And then the return would be the hashtag of this quotation mark with the S1. And that's what would print with the hashtag gen.
Okay.
All right, good.
Well, good. Any questions on that? Anybody still struggling? And try your best to not do the C solutions part in the future, like just because we can see it, but that defeats
The
the
final exam, it doesn't show up. So there's no way to cheat on the quiz.
right, but defeats the purpose of of helping you learn it and working through it. But
Yeah,
anyway,
definitely.
all right, so